In previous videos, we've looked into the deeds of some of World War II's most heroic soldiers and medics. Today, we're going to be climbing into the cockpit to fly beside some of the most heroic pilots to grace the fiery skies of the Second World War. Don't worry, this is a two-parter, and if an aerial ace from your country doesn't appear in this part, they might in the next. Another thing to be aware of is that I've not included every heroic aerial deed in this video, just what I think are the most epic ones. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. This video is proudly sponsored by the Great Courses Plus. Now, when I got the email saying that this company in particular was interested in promoting through my channel, I was really excited because I've already been using their audiobooks for months to pretty much learn any topic my heart desires. The Great Courses Plus is essentially a subscription on-demand video learning service that allows you to access over 11,000 videos of various topics, all from esteemed professors in their fields. The thing that really stands out to me with the Great Courses Plus is not only the variety of teachings they offer, but also the beautiful way the information is synthesized and segmented for both viewing pleasure and for maximum learning retention. I know that many of you appreciate quality educational videos like the ones you see on my channel, and I personally recommend checking out History's Great Military Blunders and Why You Are Who You Are, Investigations into Human Psychology, two of my favorites, and they're both exclusive only on the Great Courses Plus. So with that said, the kind folks over at the Great Courses Plus have offered all my viewers a free trial using my customized link, thegreatcoursesplus.com/thefront. So make sure you click that link to start your free trial today. I promise you won't regret it. Prince Constantine Buzu Cantacuzino was a fighter ace from a noble Romanian family. He grew up in motorsport and was able to afford all the practice he could ever want due to his family's wealth. He was a master of aerobatics before the war and was more than eager to put his skills to the test when the war started. Buzu both flew in German planes and blasted them out of the sky, though when Romania was part of the Axis, he flew a Messerschmitt Bf 109. In his Bf 109, on the 29th of June 1943, he attacked 6 Soviet aircraft and 4 British Spitfires while defending 3 Romanian bombers. Buzu's wingman, the only ally at his side, was damaged and had to return to base, and Buzu's craft was damaged too, but he saved his own life by employing his mastery of aerobatics and making an emergency belly landing. On the 5th of August, Buzu attacked a 40 to 50 strong Soviet plane formation alone, taking out 3 and scattering the rest like birds. In August of 1944, when Romania's allegiance was with the Allies, the Luftwaffe unleashed on Romania's capital, Bucharest. And so Buzu took to the sky and shredded the German pilots who were now his enemy. Throughout World War II, Constantine Buzu Cantacuzino scored a total kill count of, wait for it, 69. No other pilot in aerobatics or the Romanian Air Force could hope to match the man, and his daring, wild flying must have worked out well for him because he managed to survive the war and go on, supposedly, flying throughout Europe to visit each of his many wives. Ino Ilmari or Ilu Juutalainen was almost untouchable in the skies of World War II. The only damage this Finnish ace ever sustained was inflicted by a friendly anti-aircraft gun, and no wingman of his ever went down. In the Winter War, Juutalainen flew a Fokker DXXI against the Soviets, and later, in the continuation war, he threw an American Brewster B-239 Buffalo. On the 6th of February 1942, Juutalainen and 2 other pilots attacked 7 Soviet bombers and 12 Soviet fighters. In this engagement, he took out 2 of the bombers and later recalled, "Just as I started after the lead bomber, I observed an MiG fighter closing in on me. In spite of the threat posed by the latter, I managed to hit the bomber in the starboard engine, which poured out smoke and oil. Moments later, the aeroplane rolled over to the right and plunged into the forest." When he was put in the cockpit of a Messerschmitt Bf 109G2, Juutalainen downed 6 Soviet planes in one day, becoming an ace in that specific aircraft in just one day. For his unscathed victories and keen eye, Juutalainen received not one but 2 Mannerheim crosses, the highest of all Finnish military decorations. It's said that, besides German pilots, Juutalainen is the highest scoring ace that the world has ever seen, boasting 94 confirmed kills. He survived the war without a scratch to show for it. The poor bloke, however, died at home on his birthday in 1999, just missing out on living to see 2000. Speaking of German pilots, Erich Hartmann is the highest scoring ace the world has ever seen. While his mates may have called him Bubi, which pretty much means young boy in German, don't be mistaken, he was only a child in the face. In the cockpit, Hartmann embodied the Nazi eagle, stalking his helpless victims until he was right behind them and then tearing them open with his guns from talon's reach. He started flying in glider programs with the Luftwaffe way before it blitzkrieged its way into the war. At 15, he was a gliding instructor in the Hitler Youth. In October 1940, Hartmann's military training began, and when he finally entered the war, he could already fly 17 different aircraft. Throughout his career, Hartmann crash-landed 16 times, due only to mechanical failure or getting hit by fragments of the enemy craft he'd just torn apart. In the war, Hartmann sent 352 aircraft in charred pieces to the earth, flying in 1,404 combat missions overall. Toward its end, he received Germany's highest military decoration at the time, the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross with oak leaves, swords, and diamonds. When his country surrendered, he was turned over to the Soviets by US forces and imprisoned until 1955. When Hartmann was released, he was an officer in the West German Air Force and even trained in America. Retiring from the military, he taught civilians to fly. The Soviets must have seen his boyish face and deemed him harmless. How else would this one-man air force have been loosed back into the sky? When asked in an interview about his favorite method of attack, then retired veteran Hartmann said, "Coming out of the sun and getting close. Dogfighting was a waste of time. The hit and run with the element of surprise served me well." Before we move on, I think one of the reasons why Hartmann and other German pilots racked up so many kills is because Germany was non-stop active for 5 years on multiple fronts, meaning they had more opportunities to rack up kills. Still, this doesn't take away from the pure skill of Erich Hartmann. Dezső Szent-Györgyi was 18 when he volunteered for the Royal Hungarian Air Force. His first kill wasn't even an enemy, but a German Heinkel HE-111 bomber. It was totally an accident. In June 1943, he took down an actual enemy plane, a Soviet fighter. In May 1944, Dezső Szent-Györgyi was transferred into the Hungarian 101st Puma Fighter Group, in which he was promoted to a flight leader and shot down 6 American planes and 17 Soviet planes. The Hungarian was never taken down and never crashed, and by the end of World War II, he'd racked up 29 confirmed kills. Look, it's not a whole lot compared to some of these previous aces, but Dezső Szent-Györgyi was Hungary's most successful fighter pilot. He died doing what he loved when he crashed an Aleutian 218 airliner near Copenhagen in 1971. Italian fighter ace Franco Lucchini started his career in aviation as a glider pilot and earned his military license in 1936. In 1937, he flew in the Spanish Civil War in a Fiat CR-32 and shot down 5 enemy aircraft. He himself was shot down twice in that period as well. In World War II, he flew over the skies of North Africa, carving up Gloucester Gladiators, short Sunderland flying boats, Bristol Blenheims, and other Allied aircraft. In 1941, Lucchini battled over the skies of Malta in Mach-E C-200 Sierra monoplanes. Here, he was wounded and put out of action for a while. At the end of the year, however, he climbed back into the sky in a newer model, taking out his first Supermarine Spitfire in May of 1942. Later in May, he was back in North Africa, where he worked on his KD ratio a little bit more. In June 1943, he returned to Sicily to defend his homeland. When Lucchini took off in a Mach C-202 to slay Boeing B-17 flying fortresses near Catania, Sicily, he didn't know that that takeoff would be his last. The air group Lucchini was leading unloaded on the bombers without paying much attention to the Spitfires escorting them, an act of desperation it seems. After hitting at least 3 of the bombers and taking down a Spitfire, Lucchini's craft took a mortal wound. He plummeted to the earth near Catania, perishing very likely on impact. Franco Lucchini was credited with between 20 and 26 confirmed kills, though many of his kills were likely credited to his squadrons and groups, as was the way in the Italian Air Force. While Lucchini was known to be a serious, solitary man on the ground, he was a confident, sharp-eyed menace in the air, and one of Italy's best, if not its very best pilots in the Second World War. Hiroyoshi, also known as the Devil, Nishizawa, was born in a mountain village in Japan and volunteered to join the Yokadan, which was basically a training program for reserve pilots. He later became qualified for the Japanese Naval Air Force, graduating in early 1939. When the war kicked off, Nishizawa flew in a squadron of the Chitos Air Group, though he didn't get into a Mitsubishi Zero until February 1942. In April 1942, he was posted to New Guinea with some of Japan's best pilot aces. One of them described Nishizawa. "Never have I seen a man with a fighter plane do what Nishizawa would do with his Zero. His aerobatics were all at once breathtaking, brilliant, totally unpredictable, impossible, and heart-stirring to witness." Over the skies of New Guinea, Nishizawa battled American and Australian pilots, earning 6 kills in just 3 days and becoming an ace himself. On the 17th of May, Nishizawa and his mates performed a death-defying air show over the Allied air base at Port Moresby, just for the thrill of it. No shots were fired against them, and the Allies actually wrote to Nishizawa's commander saying how impressed they were with the show. Nishizawa and his mates obviously copped a bit of a spanking for this by his superiors, but it was worth it for the lols. Later recalled to Japan, Nishizawa was awarded a katana for conspicuous military valor, and then, after a little break from the action, he was transferred to Luzon, the Philippines, where he escorted kamikaze missions in the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944. After requesting that he himself fly a kamikaze mission and being denied, another pilot kamikazed Nishizawa's Zero. Nishizawa then boarded a transport aircraft to go and get more Zeros. He went up in flames, however, when the transport craft he went on was lashed by American Hellcats. Over his career, this gaunt, pale Japanese daredevil was credited with between 87 and 150 victories. Now, you will remember that I did say Finnish ace Ilmari Juutalainen had the most confirmed kills out of non-German pilots at 94, and that still stands because Nishizawa's lower estimate was 87. Geoffrey Bryson Fisken was a sheep farmer in New Zealand before the war, and when he first volunteered to park his tractor in the shed and join the Royal New Zealand Air Force, he was denied. Farming was just too vital a contribution to the war effort, and Fisken's favourite sheep would miss him dearly. Don't worry, I'm not going to make another joke about Kiwis and sheep, because it isn't a joke. In 1940, Fisken convinced his boss to fire him. He was then able to get into the Air Force. Early in 1941, he was sent to Singapore and learnt to fly the American Brewster F-2A Buffalo. When the Japanese attacked the British HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse, Fisken arrived at the catastrophe only in time to watch the battleship and battlecruiser sink beneath the waves. Then, the Japanese mustered their Zeros over Singapore, and on the 16th of December 1941, Fisken shot his first Zero out of the air. Just before the fall of Singapore and the capture of around 80,000 Allied troops, Fisken took out several more bombers and fighters. Retreating on the 1st of February 1942 from overwhelming Japanese forces, he was injured and evacuated, just in time to avoid being one of those 80,000. In June 1943, Fisken returned to the air over the Guadalcanal, the Solomon Islands, where he scored the last few kills of his kill streak. In September, he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, though soon after, he was discharged due to the recurring pangs of injuries he suffered in Singapore. Fisken returned to the farmlands of Middle-earth, only to find that his favourite sheep had found greener pastures. All in all, he managed to knock 11 enemy planes out of the sky, becoming the most successful British Commonwealth ace in the Pacific War. So, all in all, it may seem that being a pilot seems like a pretty sweet deal, especially when you compare it to being in the infantry and starving in the ruins of Stalingrad, or watching your flesh rot from your bones in the jungles of Burma. In reality, many pilots were blown up in the sky, many crashed into the earth or sea, and many cooked alive in their cockpits. Think about all the pilots who met these and similar fates because of the aces mentioned in this video alone. Anyways guys, apart from that somber ending, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of our most heroic and well-known pilots of World War II. So make sure you keep your eyes on the sky and look out for part 2. As per usual, just before you go, make sure you check out all those juicy links in the description below where you can join other history buffs on the Discord and help the channel out more than you already are by donating to the Patreon. Anyways, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope you learned something new.